Welcome to the Scientific Montessori Podcast, where we translate the latest academic research into Montessori-aligned practices and share insights to make parenting dramatically easier. This episode brings you the audio version of our article, The Pros and Cons of Worksheet Learning. To explore more articles, visit scientificmontessori.com.
As I mentioned in the 3 to 6 article, this time we're discussing worksheet learning.
In Montessori education, is worksheet learning good or bad?
It's bad. AMI's elementary trainers, the people certified to train teachers, repeatedly devote many pages to saying, don't use worksheets or workbooks.
Don't do pencil work. Why is that?
Because we don't just want to give answers. And we certainly don't want rote memorization. We want children to understand for themselves and to reach that understanding in a state of being set on fire, deeply engaged. That kind of engagement ultimately leads to new discoveries for humanity. Instead of worksheets, children experiment and make mistakes with didactic materials, set their own problems and research them, or build their own models and materials.
So kanji drills and math drills are also out?
That's how it goes.
Isn't that specifically for ages 9 to 12?
Worksheets aren't part of cosmic education, so it applies to the whole 6 to 12 range. I believe it's the same for ages 3 to 6. Worksheet learning never came up in my 3 to 6 course.
Then how do children develop literacy skills like calculation, reading, and writing?
They create their own problems. For example, if 5 or 6-year-olds are doing 4-digit addition with the stamp game, you just say, tell me any 4 numbers you like. And that becomes the first number. If you want to avoid carrying, you can say, now I'll pick 4 numbers I like. Once children see how problems are created, they start making and solving their own. It's curious, children aren't motivated by pre-printed problems, but when they can create the problems themselves, they become eager.
Without building that foundation from age 3 to 6, wouldn't it be pretty painful? The premise is different.
That's true. A Montessori environment has many children who are self-reliant, working asynchronously on activities they've chosen themselves. For children raised where doing the same thing as everyone else and waiting for instructions is normal, even pick any number you like might feel stressful.
Exactly. No matter how superior Montessori education is and how bad worksheet learning may be, people ask, I get the ideal, but what am I supposed to do? Methods for avoiding worksheets in Montessori education aren't widely shared or generalized.
That's AMI's fault. I'm grateful to Montessori education for helping me, and precisely because it's so wonderful, it should become open AMI. Everything should be made freely available if they're truly aiming for world peace.
Would making it public solve the problem?
No, that alone wouldn't be enough. There's still the issue of teachers. Unless you experienced something Montessori-like as a child, like Will Wright's games or something similar, and know the joy of becoming absorbed in something and making your own discoveries, you won't be able to use the materials well. Adults end up guiding children for their own convenience.
So the teacher's own background matters a lot.
Right. And on top of that, science keeps advancing. New facts emerge and new technologies become available. You have to keep studying, thinking, and incorporating new things on your own. But people who can do that are rare.
And there's the issue on the children's side, too, like waiting for instructions. Maybe one-on-one teaching would work, but that's unrealistic. What's good about worksheets? If the technology is mature, it can be done cheaply. Everyone can use them. You print them, use recycled paper, and the problems are standardized. But there's also the view that they're too outdated and too low quality. On the other hand, the Montessori approach we're talking about isn't commoditized yet, so it's demanding. Still, we can't just drop existing worksheet learning, and we can't achieve a perfect Montessori setup. But isn't there something in between?
Isn't that what we're doing?
Wait, we are? What do you mean?
We're digitizing the materials. We're evolving them and then digitizing them.
Go on, even if it sounds like advertising.
We're turning didactic materials into apps for iPhone and iPad.
This is definitely promotional, but keep going.
There's a material called the sandpaper letters for learning letters. It's a thin wooden board with sandpaper cut into the shape of letters or grooves carved into it, and children trace them in the correct stroke order to learn how to write. We made an app version.
In English-speaking countries, 3 to 6-year-olds learn 26 letters of the alphabet plus 10 numerals. Strictly speaking, there are also sandpaper letters for digraphs like the letters S and H and CH. But in Japan, you can't stop at just hiragana and katakana, the phonetic Japanese writing systems.
Right. Our app, StudyX Smart Paper Letters, supports over 6,800 characters, including kanji, the Chinese-derived characters used in Japanese. Imagine making that into physical materials. You'd need classroom space, resources to produce them, and transportation costs.
A set of 6,800 boards, the materials would cost a fortune.
Some say that once children are in elementary school, they should learn kanji theoretically by thinking about the meaning of components rather than tracing sensory-based sandpaper letters. But considering how writing evolved from pictures to kanji to hiragana and katakana, I think it's more natural for 3 to 6-year-olds to start writing kanji first.
Under Montessori purist rules, digital apps aren't allowed, right? Isn't AMI telling people to avoid screen time?
How much time and money do you think it would take to set up the ideal Montessori environment AMI describes for every child in the world? StudyX Smart Paper Letters gets downloaded in China, so we added support for simplified Chinese characters. That kind of rapid adaptation is only possible with digital.
Are you ready to be excommunicated by AMI?
I'm doing this at the risk of excommunication. Maria Montessori was familiar with the cutting-edge technology and developers of her time, and I think she believed education should evolve with the era. But here's the thing. Environments that officially qualify as Montessori education are actually far more restricted than most people realize.
How restricted?
Take Gandhi in India. He exchanged ideas with Maria Montessori, and he tried to adapt Montessori education so it could be practiced even in poverty. He provided real work, spinning thread, and making cloth. Gandhi understood the essence of Montessori education so well that Maria personally certified him as a teacher without requiring him to take a course. But in response to Gandhi's efforts, Maria said something like, "I am not a tailor. I have only provided the fabric. If you want to wear it in an Indian style, how you cut it should be left to the skill and judgment of the teachers." In other words, don't call it Montessori education.
So even Gandhi's version didn't count.
Meanwhile, for an elite school in India that had child-sized furniture and a full set of materials, she said it was my ideals rendered in brick and mortar. She held up a Dutch Montessori school with a pool and gymnasium as a model in her training lectures, and she insisted on personally training every teacher and equipping each classroom with a complete set of Montessori materials. So even back then, the spread of Montessori education was heavily restricted. By those standards, you have to wonder whether any environment in Japan qualifies as Montessori education, and apps are so far beyond the pale, it's laughable.
That's pretty stuck up. This might sound provocative, but when you actually build apps yourself, you realize ultimately the teacher gets in the way.
Exactly. That's it. Liberation from teachers and liberation from location constraints at the same time. This is evolution.
In a sense, AMI's very existence would be threatened by apps that make teachers unnecessary, so maybe they don't want that.
Maybe. With the sandpaper letters, having a teacher demonstrate how to write every single character one-on-one is exhausting. Teachers can't always respond the moment a child is ready, and children want to see it over and over. At the same time, they want a teacher who doesn't make unnecessary comments.
Hard to satisfy all of those at once.
That's where a machine wins. It can teach even the most complex kanji accurately every time, whenever the child wants, without saying anything unnecessary. It calculates a score based on tracing accuracy and encourages repetition. My eldest daughter used the app StudyX Smart Paper Letters to teach herself. Within the first half year of elementary school, she finished learning all kanji through 6th grade. Technology just hadn't caught up before. Children's potential is still largely unknown.
The theory was that with lots of children, older ones become teachers for younger ones, but birth rates are declining.
Right. For a 3 to 6 environment, the standard is one teacher, one assistant, and 35 to 45 children. The more, the better. But in Japan, where the birth rate is seriously declining, is that even achievable?
Tuition running into the millions of yen, the equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars, isn't sustainable either. And as you said, making physical materials isn't eco-friendly. It goes against the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
I learned a lot from actually making wooden materials. You use wood that took hundreds of years to grow. You use paints that prioritize safety. And yet, chemical substances are inevitably involved. Shipping also generates a lot of carbon dioxide.
Working with your hands really does teach you things.
It does. People say materials are expensive, but the prices are reasonable. Making them beautifully is hard. They're actually cheap, if anything. Cheap materials are scary. Where are they cutting costs? They must be using inferior materials.
And probably not paying workers fairly. So, in summary, AMI's approach isn't sustainable and isn't cool.
I've thought many times about burning my teaching certificate.
That's radical. Well, we're anti-establishment. We don't believe Maria Montessori was absolutely right. That's why we take a scientific approach. We don't think we are absolutely right either. We always work with the awareness that we might be wrong.
True. Our thinking keeps updating, so I'm glad we created a monthly magazine that can deliver the latest information. That said, I do want to point out that physical materials are still genuinely valuable.
In what way?
I made wooden fraction circles, and the other day my eldest daughter used them in an unexpected way while studying math through programming. This is turtle geometry, where a character on screen draws shapes by tracing its path. Move forward 100 steps, then turn 120 degrees. Repeated draws an equilateral triangle. Why does that work? She was able to explore that question hands-on with the material. Experimenting hands-on like this really does lead to discoveries.
That's the difference from worksheet learning. If a worksheet tests knowledge and you don't have that knowledge, you can't do anything. But with materials, you might figure something out just by handling them.
That's absolutely true. For something like these fraction circles, there are hardware stores now where you can use laser cutters, and wood is easy to get, so I think people should try making them. When parents do that kind of thing, children want to make things too.
That's ideal, but the bar is pretty high for ordinary families. So I think we should keep evolving apps. I made a handwriting-based math drill app, and it gives immediate feedback on whether answers are correct. I was able to design a learning experience where children naturally write numbers carefully and try to solve problems quickly and accurately. There are lots of ways to encourage learning. The specifics are trade secrets, though.
I hope we can get the apps we're developing to everyone soon.
I'm going to create apps that unleash the creativity of children around the world. Conventional education spoils creativity. We're fighting against that.
Ages 6 to 12 are what Maria Montessori called the most intellectual period, the time to fully unleash imagination. Let me close with her words.
Please.
The secret of good education is to regard the child's intelligence as a fertile field in which seeds may be sown, to sprout and grow under the heat of a flaming imagination. Our aim, therefore, is not merely to make the child understand, and still less to force memorization, but to touch the imagination and kindle enthusiasm to the child's inmost core. We do not want complacent students. We want students hungry for knowledge. Rather than cramming theories into children, we wish to sow life and help them grow mentally, emotionally, and physically. To do this, we must offer the human mind great and lofty ideas, for the mind is always ready to receive them and asks for more and more.
Thank you for listening to the Scientific Montessori podcast. We hope today's episode helped you see how research and Montessori principles can make parenting simpler and more meaningful. For more articles and resources, visit scientificmontessori.com and join us again next time.